Today's show will be very interesting for us. As you know, as you have already seen the thumbnail, okay? So, yes, she is my guest, and I will try to ask every single question as a normal people think what they have to do and what they do not have to do to become rich. Because, like it's today's buzz everywhere. If you wanted to be a millionaire, if you have invested in this sector, you made million money, billions money. These are the buzz in the market, okay? But what is the right approach and how to do it? For that, call this guest with me, and definitely we'll try to cover all the aspects. So be there with us till the end. Definitely you would be learning a lot of things today. Thank you, Corey, for accepting my request. Welcome to GTT Talk Show. And definitely, before we begin, I wanted you to please introduce yourself to our trading community and as well as YouTube community.
Yeah, so my name's Cori Arnold. Found myself in lots of debt about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. I had no idea what I was going to do. It was a big struggle. I mean, I really had no idea how to pay it off. I actually thought that I could just work really hard at my job and make enough money, increase my salary, get promoted at work, and make enough money and the debt would just go away. But what I realized is that debt was never going to go away. So about 10 years ago, I had a couple turning points. My mindset completely shifted. I saw my money differently. I got really intentional about paying off that debt and starting to invest in appreciating assets. So this has been a long 10-year journey, but I went from about 260,000 of debt, a negative net worth of about a negative 100,000 to millionaire just last year. So it's been a journey. I still do work at my full-time job, and then on the side, I've been doing the YouTube channel and the Twitter, just trying to share the story and give others hope because I did not come from wealth, and I know a lot of people don't come from wealth, and I just want to share hope and give people the inspiration that they need to know that they can really do this too.
Wow, that's really impressive answer. And yes, I can see that you are very active on Twitter as well as on the other hand side, YouTube. Every second day, you are coming up with the right content and you are spreading the right knowledge to the people. Yes, I am motivated by you, and definitely I wanted your viewers and my viewers to get motivated. Choose the right step, take your first step to the right direction, then only you can get rich. Can you please let us know what is financial freedom as per you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And actually, that definition has changed for me over time. A few years ago, I thought financial freedom was retirement. I thought it was no work, no stress, just live my life, come up with a certain number, and then just live my life the way I wanted it. But what I've realized the last year or two is that it doesn't really mean no work. I have found things that I really love to do. I love to write. I love to do these videos. I like to share the story. So my definition of financial freedom is definitely different. I think it's achieving goals. There's definitely a mathematical component to it. There's a certain amount of money that you would need to hit to cover your expenses every month. And that's definitely one piece of it. But then the other piece that I'm continuing to learn and refine is figuring out like what do you really want in life, and then how do you go get it? Because to go get a lot of big goals, you do have to have resources, and that number sometimes is a lot bigger than just living day by day. So financial freedom, it's a definition that continues to I continue to refine it in my mind.
Okay, so like day by day or year by year, it's changing. Am I right?
Hmm.
There is no perfect
Yeah,
definition of
exactly.
financial freedom. Great,
Yeah,
great.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so next question, definitely. The next question is, how long does it take to reach financial freedom?
Mhm. Good question. I mean, it definitely depends on a lot of variables. Number one, where are you today? Do you have a stable job? How much debt do you have? Maybe you have zero debt. What's your income? There's just so many. What's your current ownership of appreciating assets like real estate and stock? If you're literally starting from scratch, so maybe you're an 18-year-old, a 20-year-old who is just really at the beginning of your adulthood, it takes a long time. You've got to find, for me, I really believe in the 9 to 5. I do want to retire early. I do not want to work there till my mid 60s. But I really believe in the value because you're not only gaining a stable income, but you also are learning things about the business, how to run a business, and a lot of people want to run their own business. So it's nice to mimic or get some lessons from another company. You learn people skills, and as you know, I'm sure Mukesh, life is really about relationships and really
Agreed.
being able to deal with people. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you do. You could work for a 9 to 5, you can have your own business, but you have to know how to have relationships and have fun with people. So um, yeah, so I think it's tough. I can't give you an answer. It's not a certain number of years. But it's really, it's taking into consideration your income, your expenses. And I think a lot of people do forget about the expense side of the equation. Maintain a small lifestyle. Like I live in an old farmhouse. I kind of live in the middle of nowhere. I did get pretty lucky. I'm able to work remote with my job, but I live in a very low cost area, and I have not always been this way. I for a long time, and the reason I actually got into so much debt at the beginning is because I let my ego, drive my decisions, which was dumb. So I can't give you a number. For me, it took me 10 years to really climb out of my hole and to become a millionaire, which I don't necessarily think is financial freedom. That number is different for every person. But I think if you give it a good 10 years, you will make so much more progress than you ever thought. I mean, 10 years ago, I would have never ever imagined that I would be here today. So it takes time. I can't give you a number, but give yourself at least 10, 15, 20 years.
Great, great, great. Okay, so my next question is based on your previous question. My next question is, who can actually achieve financial freedom?
Interesting. Well, my answer is everyone can. It doesn't matter if you have your own business, you work for a company. I think if you have the right mindset and you're consistently creating habits, for example, investing. I mean, some people, and I used to actually be one of these people, some people don't believe that if you just invest $100 a month, that it can actually get you anywhere. It does take time, obviously, but in 40 years, you will have the most comfortable retirement that you can imagine if you can get to that point. So I don't think it's necessarily a person who owns a business or a person who works for a business. I think owning the business obviously has a lot more potential. When you work for a company, there are limits, but there are people that really rise up the chain and end up, at the top of the company. So it's tough. I think both ways work. I can't, again, sorry, I'm not giving you straight answers, but I think depending on the person, you can get to the top either way.
Wow, that's really interesting to know that. Okay, so okay, so I have one more interesting question for you. Okay, so if do I have to earn a huge salary to reach financial freedom?
That's a good question. No, it really, again, it depends on your expenses. So if you are happy living on a certain amount on, maybe in the middle of the country like I live, my expenses are not that high. So I would not really have to make that much income to come up with my financial freedom number. Um, it really does come down to expenses and your own appreciation of life. So one thing I do talk about sometimes is gratitude. I started practicing gratitude a few years ago, and when you actually you actually take the time to consider everything you have in your life and you recognize what you have, it's amazing because then you see so many more details and you understand how much more you have. And for me, it's been a life changer. My expenses went way down after I started like recognizing, oh my gosh, like look how much I have. I don't need to go to the store and buy new clothes or whatever it is. So no, I don't think you have to have a high income. And actually, back to the last answer, I said, literally $100 a month invested in an index fund, you'll end up a millionaire. It will take you, I think it's like 38, 40 years, depending on the rate of return, but literally $100 a month, like almost everyone can afford that. So don't think that if you don't earn a high income, you can't become financially free. It's more about your consistent investing habits every month.
Wow, that's great. So, again, I have an interesting question based on the previous answer. That is, how do I know that I have reached financial freedom? Is there any way, is there any calculation so that I can calculate myself?
Yeah, great question. So the actual formula for financial freedom, what you do is you take your current monthly or actually annual expenses. So let's just say I'm going to use an easy example because the math is easy. Let's just say my annual expenses are $40,000 a year. So I need $40,000 a year to live on. What you do is you take 40,000 divided by 4%. So your total annual interest or total annual expected expenses divided by 4%, and you'll get your financial freedom number. So in this case, 40,000 divided by 4% is 1 million. So if I had $1 million, I would be financially free. Now, one thing that so it's a pretty easy formula. You just the problem is you have to know what, or you have to have an estimated expense number, which can be harder as you get older. You don't know there. Of course, there's variables. You're not going to know inflation. You're not really going to know your average return over the years. But there's been lots of studies done where that 4%, if you only take 4% of your money, it should last you 30, 40, 50 years. So really that 4% is a really good number. And if you can estimate those expenses, then you can easily calculate what your financial freedom number is.
Okay, that's great. So, you know, like again, I have interesting question. Okay, suppose there are two persons, one with the age of 20, one with the age of 40. So if both start investing, so who will first reach financial freedom stage?
Yeah, good question. Of course, it depends if they're both investing the same thing, the same amount of money. I mean, of course, the 20-year-old is going to do it so much quicker. I mean, it depends in absolute terms. So if they can both do it in 20 years, but the problem is, the 40-year-old is 60 years old while the 20-year-old is only 40 years old. So of course, I mean, the sooner you can start investing, the better. I really try to preach that too. It is so crazy how compounding works. And I, again, like in my early 20s, I really didn't believe in compounding. Like I saw the math, I saw the theories, but again, I thought it was a theory. I didn't think it was real. And then when I started like consistently investing and not withdrawing from my retirement over the last 11 years, that's when I was, that's what stunned me because yes, compounding is real. It's not this made up theory that people just talk about. It is a real phenomenon that really happens. The bigger your balance is, think about if you have $100,000 and you make 10%, you're going to make about $10,000. If you have $1 million and you make 10%, you're going to make $100,000. So the numbers on the same percentage of return, the numbers just get much bigger as time goes on.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's really a good calculation as well. Okay, so you know, like, okay, so again, now I have an interesting question for you, and that is, okay, so in today's days, everybody they want to become a millionaire. Am I right? So,
Yes.
do we have any shortcut to reach financial freedom, or I would say, do you believe in get rich quick scheme? Have you invested like this scheme?
Good question. So I was pretty dumb in my early 20s. I made so many, and I talk about these too. I made so many mistakes with my money, and one of those was get rich quick schemes because of course, like you said, everyone wants to be a millionaire, everyone wants to be rich. That is the most common question I get on email and on Twitter is how can I be rich? How can I become a millionaire? Um, the thing is, get rich quick does not work. I've tried it. I tried the Forex market, which is the foreign currency exchange market. I tried penny stocks. I think those are the main two that I tried, but it does not work. I've heard so many horror stories about people going to these real estate seminars and these people telling them that, yeah, you can flip a house, no cash down, whatever they tell them. And then they invest so much money in this company and they have more invested in the company than, they could have just went out and bought a property. So they do not work. You have to, that's another mindset shift thing. You have to stop looking at the short term and start thinking about your future self in 10 years and 20 years. And when you can develop habits that you can literally do day in and day out, which sounds boring and it sounds hard. But when you do that, like for example, the investing, if you come up with just $100 a month, every single month, it pays off so much. But the thing is, you're not, in month 2, you're not going to be a millionaire. You've got to wait some time. And that's another thing that really changed with me. I started getting more intentional about my habits. Start really small. Don't create all these new habits in one day and just think your life is going to change. You really have to start really small, like maybe meditating for 5 minutes a day or something super small, or gratitude. Write down 3 things a day. Investing. it really is a well-rounded journey getting better with your money. You actually, your whole life improves. And it's not just because of the money, it's because you've changed other habits in your life.
Well, that's pretty answer. So I wanted to move ahead, but yes, before we move ahead, I wanted to know you have mentioned early assets. I wanted to know what is appreciating asset and depreciating asset. Please let us know this.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and so all assets are not created equal. As you said, some appreciate, so some grow in value, and some depreciate, some decline in value. So if you think about vehicles, cars, anything with wheels, for the most part, I know there's been a little blip where used cars have actually gone up, but over the long run, cars, vehicles, they mostly depreciate. Clothes, furniture, things generally depreciate. Now, when we talk about appreciating assets, this is where you want to put your money, because when you put your money in appreciating assets, the money does the work for you. You're never going to get rich with your own labor. So appreciating assets is where you need to put your money. Now, there's three popular appreciating assets. The first, probably most common, is the stock market. So there are exchanges, there are markets all around the world. Look for an index fund, especially if you're just getting started. I would just look for a very popular index fund, one that's more in the US. I don't know if India, if you guys have access to this, but like that, there's a lot of index funds around the S&P 500, which are, the S&P has averaged, I don't know what the numbers, I think it might be 11, 13% over the long haul. Of course, there's years that go down, but those are the years when you really test your habit and you continue to invest. So stock market's number one. Number two is real estate. Real estate, again, we've had blips. So 2008, 2009, it went down. But for the most part, if you look over the 50 years, 60 years, it's really continued to climb. And especially over the last 2 to 3 years, it's been pretty crazy, to be honest. And then the third one is businesses. So you could invest in a franchise, for example. You can invest in an existing business where you own the whole thing. Or you could be a partner. Maybe the business, maybe you can't afford the whole thing, so you buy in 50% or 33%, and you go in with a couple people. Now, again, like if you think about owning a business versus like owning a stock is very hands off. So you do technically own a piece of a business, especially if you buy a single stock, but you don't actually have to take any action. You just buy the stock and you're the owner. When you own a business where you're maybe a partner, there's a lot more hands-on aspect to it. You've got to make sure you've got the labor to work the business and make sure the business is operating. Real estate is also a lot more hands-on than stocks. It doesn't matter if you decide you're going to rent and you hire a property manager, or if you're going to flip a property and you hire a general contractor, you still have to be there for decisions, because there's always things that come up that are not to plan. So appreciating assets are definitely the path to wealth, and determining how involved you want to be in those will probably determine which asset you should focus on.
Being as a millionaire, I wanted to know, and my viewers as well, could you please let us know in what all sectors you have invested? Definitely. So we should try to do it the same way.
Yeah, good question. I invest in anything really. My main investments though are the stock market. I invest in a lot of index funds, mutual funds for growth companies, and I invest in real estate. So if you look at my net worth, about 60% of my net worth is in index funds and mutual funds. 10% is roughly in individual stocks, so single stock companies, and about 30% is in, or sorry, I didn't do the math. 40% roughly is in real estate.
Great, great, great. So now you are a millionaire. So now I wanted to know your habits before and after, please.
Yes. So I was under many false beliefs, and it's funny. We get these beliefs from our childhood, from the people who raise us, from our friends growing up, from our experiences. And the funny thing is, which might not be so funny, but we have these beliefs for years and we actually think they're facts. Like we don't even question them, right? They're just, this is how it is, this is how it's going to be, and we don't question them. And that's how I was. So some of my beliefs were, debt's normal. Like literally everyone has debt. That's what I thought. And you have to have a car loan if you own a car, so that was another one. Some other ones were, you have to work till your 60s till you're available, you can get the government help. There were just, luckily I didn't believe that one too long. But the beliefs about the debt, I definitely believed. there were I used to think this one's kind of this is a little embarrassing, but I used to think that my monthly debt payments were actually my motivation to keep working. So there's so many false beliefs that I just assumed were facts, and I never really questioned them before this journey, and that was part of the reason I was in so much debt. But now I've had a few mindset shifts, as I mentioned, all the way back to 2012, so 10 years ago. There were a couple things that really shifted my mindset. And now, I mean, today I just have a totally different belief. Um, for example, like I also used to think, people with bigger houses, they must be more important, they must have more influence. Again, like stuff does not make you more important. Your value does not come from what you own. It just comes from, your mindset, your gratitude, your appreciation of life. So I've definitely got a much better appreciation of life and value in myself. And even my confidence has really come through because for so long I just wanted to push my money to the corner. I wanted to avoid it. And I didn't recognize it, but it really, it was a burden that I was trying to get away from. So yeah, just the awareness that yes, like we are trapped by our beliefs sometimes and we don't even know it. So it has been definitely an awakening experience.
Wow, great. So it's completely from zero to hero.
Exactly. Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. So, like, if somebody comes to you and they wanted to know, like, okay, I wanted to be a millionaire. Please tell me what all things I need to stop right away to become a millionaire within 5 years or 10 years. So, is there any, like,
Yeah, so I get that question a lot. The first thing I do is, again, I'm a strong believer in a 9 to 5. I don't think you have to do it forever. I definitely don't think you have to do it forever. But to get started and to really start using that investment muscle, you need a stable income. So, find a full time job and get that stable income. And then you'll have money coming in. It's a regular paycheck. Then you will actually see how good you are at, treating your money. Because obviously you have to bring in money to have money. And so that's my first thing for everyone. Now, obviously, there are exceptions. Some people have built awesome businesses. And for those people, of course, they don't need a 9 to 5. They're already they've figured out how to make money from their side hustles or their businesses. So again, that's my first thing. Just learn as much as you can from a business, get that regular paycheck, start that investing muscle. Because again, the sooner you start, the sooner you can see compounding work for you. And then after you're good, you're kind of settled, you're investing regularly, then start creating some funds because most side hustles do cost money. So start creating a buffer, where you're setting aside $100 a paycheck or whatever the number is, where you can start your side hustle. Because again, you may not love your 9 to 5. Of course, there's exceptions. If there's people who love their 9 to 5s, then stick with your 9 to 5. Do as much as you can to grow that income in your 9 to 5. If you're someone who doesn't see yourself working for a company your whole life, that's where I say, like, put some funds, which is kind of what I'm doing, put some funds over to the side, start investing in your side hustle and figure out a plan to make revenue and make income. So that's how I would say start. And then again, as you build the muscle, as you start to make more income, then you can start to invest more.
so yes, with this answer, we are at the end of our show, and I wanted to conclude something. If you wanted to be wealthy in future, if you wanted to be millionaire in future, yes, there are few things that have to be done by you. Number one, like you have to start saving. And once you start saving, you need to invest. If you have no idea where to invest, start investing in ETFs, stock ETFs. That is the best place to invest. That does not mean that you do not have to invest in real estate. Yes, you can invest as well depending on you, but I'm telling you, for a layman people, if you have no idea, you can start investing like mutual fund. There are mutual funds, there are different schemes. Contact your advisory, contact somebody who can guide you really well. And once you start saving, investing, definitely it will take time, but yes, as Cori mentioned, like it probably 10 to 15 years, definitely you will be rich, because like it's not a one day scheme. You need to like wait for lump sum period, then only you will have good amount of money in your hand. So that's great. Altogether, it was a lovely session, and definitely I wanted all of you, if you have any doubts, any session, would you like to continue, please comment. And definitely in future, yes, I have already discussed with Corey, and we will be in touch, and we would love to answer your queries. Definitely. So thank you, Corey. Corey, it was lovely talking to you and
Yeah,
really
thank you. Thanks for your patience too. I know it took a while to get together.
great.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, thanks, Mukesh. Well,
So
thank you
anything,
very much. Yeah.
my pleasure. Bye bye, Corey. Take care.
Bye. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.